Welcome back to Pint Podcast, but wait there, pause, sound the alarm. If you want to win a free Pint t-shirt, as just here, follow the 3 simple steps. Make sure you subscribe now. Hit that like button and comment, subscribe, and your favourite guest. And then we'll be checking. So if you want to win a free t-shirt, follow them 3 simple steps. But right now, we're joined by Mark Robertson, so let's get into that podcast now. So, Mark, born in Australia, what was it like growing up playing football out there and sort of your route into playing in England?
It was hot, sunny. The grounds were rock hard. So almost like Ayers Rock, mate, you know, just like concrete floor. You slide tackle over there, you lose half your leg. Ball would bounce up in the air every time it hit the floor. So you can imagine I was coming from something completely different from Australia to when you first come over here to the mud-ridden sort of fields. And so it took me a while to get used to it. My body sort of like took a while to get used to it because obviously the whole transition of, hard surfaces to soft surfaces, molded boots. I'd never wore a pair of sort of like screw-in studs really before I'd come to the UK. A few international games and stuff, I'd wore them, but they weren't sort of in my cupboard, if that makes sense, in Australia, because everything out there is just so dry and almost barren, some of the fields that you would play on. So, life was good as a youngster. I was really good as a youngster, as a young player. My old man was a professional footballer. His dad was a professional footballer. Some people will say it was in the genes. Other people will say that he worked hard at it. I kind of worked hard at my fitness, but didn't really work an awful lot harder on my ball skills and technical ability and stuff. So as I was coming through, I was always the kind of kid, you know, the popular one at school, the popular one at the park and stuff like that. So I was kind of used to being decent. I had an older brother who, you know, we used to play one-on-ones in the backyard and he'd kick the shit out of me. And so that was always good. And, you know, it wasn't until later on in life I'd done a bit of reading, believe it or not, and they say that a lot of athletes that go on to have like elite careers and stuff have older siblings. So I could possibly vouch for that because he was just a mad supporter of football. He loved it, you know. He had like all the pictures around his room and all that, and then I had pictures of surfing, waves, girls, and then you go in his room and he had pictures of like Glasgow Rangers and, you know, Man United and all that sort of stuff. But I was just a different breed to him, really. I was more of the socialite that would like to go out and, play football, soccer as we called it. But, you know, I then got into surfing and I then got into, chicks and all that sort of stuff. So
I wanted to touch on Mark's. I might be wrong, but football's not or soccer, as you say, like the main sport in Australia. They have cricket's huge, isn't it? Rugby. Aussie rules football, which I've tried to watch a few times and I can't understand why they're picking it up, why they've got a net on top and on bottom. I gave up watching that. But was it through your family then that sort of pushed you down the football route?
I'd say so, mate. Look, you're already 3 sports down there when you mention all of them, so you can keep going in the rugby sense. Yeah. So you got AFL, rugby league, rugby union, cricket. Swimming's a big sport in Australia. So when you sort of go into the back pages of your daily newspaper, you're getting 6, 7, 8 pages deep before anything comes up about soccer. Yeah. Now, the first thing that would come up would be the Premier League, and then a little bit further down would be maybe a soccer league. It's kind of evolved a little bit since my time. But, yeah, you're right. If you did play it, you were, mate, totally. You were a big softie, you were a pansy, and it was very, very focused on this, like, big macho Australian sort of, like, bravado of play rugby or play AFL. So if you played soccer, you were just... and I don't know, I'd like to think I changed that in some respects because I never used to take shit from many blokes at school or that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, you're right in saying that. So then when I had my opportunity to play the game, I sort of used to go and watch my dad's games. My dad was like an international who played for Australia. So when I got the opportunity to go on and play for Australia, it was kind of like a proud moment for us. But if you think about it, the only people that are really Australian are the Aboriginals, because everybody else that lives in Australia has come from a different country. So my mum and dad are both Scottish. They're both from Edinburgh. They both migrated to Australia. My wife, who I then went on to marry when I was playing at Burnley, she's from Peru, so South American. So if you go through like Croatians, Italians, and you only needed to go through our national team when I was playing, and it was Viduka and Popovic and Kalats and Muscat and all these boys that come from a real, diverse multicultural background. So I was no different. So I was like the white-skinned Aussie that never used to sit in the sun, and everyone to this day goes, "Don't you miss the freaking sunshine?" And I'm like, "Nah, man, just get sunburn. I start peeling, then I just go back in, get sunburn again." So, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like I'm British deep down, but also there's a big part of me. I was born and raised in Australia, so I'm dinky die Aussie.
Yeah, you said it was it's in the family. You've got a lad, haven't you, Alex Robertson, who's making good ground at Man City.
Yeah, you know what, mate? He's got a little platform there to sort of to spring off, really, and it's going to be up to him. Under no illusions whatsoever that he's going to go on and be the next best thing. But all I do is I'm the parent that, yes, I played the game, so I can just kind of guide him through the fog and just let him know that potentially what's round the corner or what's down these little alleyways when he makes these turns. So I guess in that respect, I don't ever want to put pressure on him and say he's going to be this, he's going to be that. But at the end of the day, I feel like he's got a real good chance. And the only reason I say that is because he's a good human, first and foremost. And he's got a really good work ethic, whether that's the Australian side of him or whether that was the South American side of him, or he was born in Scotland. So whether that's the Scottish grit that he's got through his granddad and where he was born, who knows? But it's a nice little blend to have. And at this moment in time, he's 17 and he's kind of navigating his way through one of the world's biggest clubs, really.
Yeah, I'm going to say he's got a decent platform, and I know the facilities aren't bad at City, are they? So
yeah. Look, there's a lot of negativity around people saying, you'll never make it at City, you'll never play in the first team. But I'm very much the optimist, and I always say, well, someone has to play in the first team.
Yeah.
Phil Foden, I bet you, coming from Stockport when he was sort of coming through, no one ever would have sort of pinned him on to be playing in the first team, and he's doing all right for himself. So we just take each day as it comes, and hopefully in time he'll go on. And really, you end up where you should end up. Like, I know there's these players that said, I could have played for such and such, and that's bullshit, mate. You end up where you are, and at the end of the day, if you're good enough, you'll make it. If you're not, then do you know what I mean?
Right. There's other players from City as well who didn't necessarily make it out City, but like Ben Mee and Kieran Trippier left City, came to Burnley. Look at careers they've had. Trippier, top of La Liga at the minute. So
I love that. Yeah. And look, they're all fairy tales, and you can obviously sit back and say, well, if you go on and play for Burnley, for me, if you go on and play for like Altrincham, like you've done well. Do you know what I mean? I've got no sort of like bias to say that there's shit clubs and good clubs or whatever. I think if you're doing it and you're doing it for a living, I think the majority of the population would like to have a crack at it. And if you've got a chance to do it, then good on you. Yeah,
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. If you can make a profession out of a game that we all love, you're winning, really, aren't you?
Yeah, we all need to work. We all would go out and get a job doing whatever it is, shoveling shit over there, or cleaning out bins, or working Tesco. They're all jobs, and there's nothing wrong with those jobs. So if you're doing it and you're kicking a ball around, and I know it's glamorized a lot in this country, but the reality is it is hard work, and it can be a slog. And I think it's more mental than it is physical, purely because a lot of the stuff that I went through as a player. And that's just sort of living proof that it is quite a tough industry, Yeah.
So we touched on Burnley. What has been your greatest memory playing for Burnley?
I remember so much about Burnley. I mean, I remember the first time there was any interest. I was at Glasgow Rangers at the time, and so I was training with them and sort of having a look at whether that would be the right move for me. So I'd been to Nottingham Forest. I was at Glasgow Rangers. My agent had said to me, Chris Waddle wants to sign you at Burnley. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't even really know much about Burnley because you can imagine, yes, they'd been a massive club back in the day when they were top of the first division and stuff like that. But as the years went by and during my growing up period, all I knew was Newcastle United, Man United. And so I used to watch the whole match of the day and stuff like that. So Burnley never really come on my radar. So sat down with my agent. I said, what do you think? And he goes, right, Glasgow Rangers, massive club, Nottingham Forest, good club. It wouldn't be a bad idea for you to go into that League One level, make a name for yourself, then potentially get a move from there. And I was like, okay. So he kind of sold it to me. And then we spoke to Chris Waddle. Chris Waddle was like, I'd really like to sign you. I watched you play a couple of months ago for Australia in the World Youth Championships. And you're sort of everything that we would like to have at the football club. So we're willing to pay the transfer fee to the club in Australia. And would you be interested? And it was very hard because, I had some good clubs there. You had Chris Waddle, who had like his coaching staff, Glenn Roeder, Gordon Cowans, Chris Woods. Like for me, that was like a fairy tale because I'd watched these guys sort of like when I was growing up, especially Chris Waddle, I mean, he'd be like the equivalent of you signing for a player now, which was a standout player for the national team, let's say.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this sounds good. So went into it blind because I didn't even know where Burnley was. So anyway, gets there, goes into it and starts sort of playing and, I had to learn really quickly. I remember the gaffer pulled me in early doors, and he's like, I know you like to play football because I was a ball playing sort of Australian player, and I had a bit of grit about me and a bit of nastiness and stuff like that. But then I sort of had to just try and evolve my game a little bit. Where if you took one touch, that's fine. 2 touches, 3 at a push, the ball needs to be moved a bit quicker. And so, I had to sort of adapt and learn that side of the game. And Chris was happy to help me with that. And because he was playing at the time, remember? Yeah. So the gaffer would be playing alongside us. And so he was able to adapt because he was older and more knowledgeable and had that experience where I was still a bit young and probably a bit naive. So I adapted my game, but then did I adapt it too much in a sense of, maybe being that enforcer that didn't get a chance to express himself a little bit? Who knows? I just found it difficult at first to adapt from Australian football to English football. That took a bit of time, but as I said, Chris and Gordon and all the coaching staff were excellent. The boys were good. I kind of was a bit daunting at first because I was going into like the Northwest and, everything was a bit doom and gloom at that stage for me because I'd come from like waves and beaches and sunshine to sort of like, no disrespect, the weather wasn't great. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, shit, what's going on here? So, yeah.
What was, obviously, it's an interesting time to look back on as a Burnley fan with Chris Waddle because I remember that summer when he became manager. As a fan, we're like, fucking hell, it's Chris Waddle, I know. And the checkbook came out for our level. We signed, top of my head, Mark Ford for like £250,000 from Leeds, who was on the 21 international at the time. We brought in like Lee
Leatherwick from Notts Forest, Howie, Michael Williams from Sheffield Wednesday,
Steve Blatherwick. These were all players who had been playing in at least Championship level, Premier League level. And there was masses of optimism. Obviously, Waddle, we were getting as a player as well as a manager as well. So, we expected a promotion charge that season. Obviously, we didn't know what was to come. Do you think he was? Obviously, he's never gone into management again. For Josh and Nick, who obviously don't know, we had to actually win on the last day of the season to stay up. So it didn't go great.
I did read that, actually.
What was it like then under Waddle? Obviously, he's always come across a really sound guy, but was it just a bit much for him, do you think, the management game? Or?
Yeah, like the gaffer was very much he wasn't like, I wouldn't say he was comfortable in front of all the lads, and things probably didn't sort of like flow as much as what he would like them to be. I personally think it would be hard. You sort of played half a game, you come in, you're trying to talk to the lads, you've got fucking sweat on your brow, you're like breathing out your ass. All right, and he's already out there doing it with us. So then Glenn Roeder would take like the team talks, and then is he getting across the points that maybe the gaffer wanted to get across? The gaffer was like sitting, as I said, like having his like swig of orange juice, and then he'd jump up and say a few things. But I just think that the sort of like consistency sort of levels in maybe what was trying to be portrayed may have just been on that roller coaster ride. I think we had some great players to call upon, and I was the same as you. I was coming in going, yeah, okay, this is good. There's some really good players here. And I personally thought, shit, we'll go on and do really well, from the basis of the players that we had versus the ones that the gaffer brought in. I thought, geez, this is good. And it's very hard to pinpoint it, but, I think the gaffer was very laid back. He was very approachable. I think maybe some players looked at it and maybe were a bit in awe of him because of the superstar that he was. I think that potentially on the field, the gaffer might have looked at some of us and went, you guys are shit, like, how come you can't do that? And I don't know, it might have been a skill, or it might have been a pass, or, being able to see something. He was like, how come you can't see that? Or so he got a bit frustrated as well. I'm not going to lie, like on the field and stuff like that. So you're kind of putting a whole different level of pieces together for this jigsaw, and it just didn't really fit, didn't match. The gaffer didn't have any fallouts with anyone. No one told him to piss off. He didn't know what he was doing. Everyone respected him. Everyone respected the coaching staff that we had. Training sessions were good. Glenn Roeder put on a good session. The gaffer's legs had probably gone by then, so you sort of like you're covering in midfield. I played alongside him several times. It was quite funny because you like, one day you might play alongside 40, and your stats might be like 6 kilometre runs or something. Then you play along next to the gaffer and you've clocked up 20 Ks. It's like, far out, man. Like, get back, gaffer. And it's like, you sort of, it's real. I've never had to do it ever again. But when you're playing with your boss and you want to tell him, just do this, pull your finger out or whatever, or cover, or you just can't do it, mate.
I've never thought of it like that. Like, you always wonder with the player managers, why does it not work? You don't see it much, if ever, do you, really? But that's such a strange scenario for you to be put in. You're in midfield going, for fuck's sake, gaffer, come on, That's really weird. Interesting.
I remember hearing a story that Ali McCoist and Graham Souness come to blows in the changing room at Glasgow Rangers, because obviously Souness was doing this, and he was standing there in his kit and his boots, like talking to everyone. And then McCoist must have turned around and goes, how about you fucking pull your finger out, you fucking idiot, like that. And he goes, who are you talking to? And he goes, well, if you're on our team, if you want to speak to us like that, then don't be disappointed when I'm giving it back to you. Yeah. And then Souness went for him, or something kicked off, and the two of them were at each other, and everyone was like pulling them apart. And so, I mean, the gaffer, Chris Waddle, was just, for me, he was so placid, I don't think you could ever get angry at him. He'd never get angry at you. And I just always looked at him with this massive level of respect. And it just was one of those years that was very interesting, but a real eye opener to me in my sort of like baptism of English football.
I think there is an argument to be said. If he'd been given one more season, and the reason I say that is, obviously we had a shit first half of the season, like bottom 3 entire time, but sort of February to the end of the season, I think I looked at this the other day, obviously for this podcast, I think out of 15 games we won about 10, including beating top of the league Fulham, I think it was at the time, or someone else. It was top of the league. Obviously traded Paul Barnes and got Andy Payton in, who would eventually fire us to promotion out of that division and was a legend for the club. And he brought in the player that actually is my favourite ever Burnley player into the first team in Glenn Little. And there's a lot that Waddle did that set the groundwork for what his replacement got the credit for in Stan Ternent. But it is interesting to think maybe if Waddle had another season, I don't know.
Yeah,
could have
Yeah.
maybe.
He come in with some really good ideas, some a great philosophy. He was a footballer, right, and a good footballer at that. So anything that he was trying to teach us or try and educate to us about the philosophy of football was playing football. So you can imagine training sessions were all football. I personally think that when we played on Craven Cottage or at Stoke or wherever it was, we played top football.
Yeah.
You go play on the dog shit at Chesterfield and, Rotherham or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You kind of like really dig yourself out because the field wasn't great. We had all footballers in our team. There wasn't many boys that couldn't play. So to be at that level and then sort of like, as you said, those 10 games, I'd be very interested to see what stadiums they were played at. At Turf, yeah, we played really well. As I said, going away but going to like some really tough grounds. And I mean that in the greatest respect because a lot of those clubs were like fighters. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So maybe we didn't have the fight that you needed in League One, but we certainly had like the flair, if that makes sense. You're talking about Paul Weller, Cookie, Glenn Little. Yeah, you're talking about Ford. He was a nasty little get, and so was I to a certain extent. The gaffer could play football, but you go through that squad and there's a lot of footballers there, mate. And as you said, they were signed from like Championship, Premiership. I reckon, where was the gaffer playing before he come and slotted his boots on at Chesterfield on a Tuesday night? He was probably, on a nice field and playing pretty football. And then, I had to learn, right? So I'm there. And if I had to learn, then I bet you the guy from the Premiership or the Championship or even the gaffer, they were learning on the job as well. So I probably wasn't alone in that sense. That you got a lot of people, and people to this day always say to me, League One, or, in Australia, people go, the Scottish Premiership, shit. And I go, shit, are you serious? I'm like, and you've got to adapt to these styles of football. You've got to adapt to the leagues that you play in. League One, no different. I said to my son, I'd love to see how you go in League One. Do you know what I mean? It's like the different brands of football, getting things, hooking it around the corner, muscling in on people, intimidating people. There was all like ruckuses in like in the tunnels and stuff. Like I was not used to that. I was thinking, why is everyone so angry? They're just aggressive football. Go to take a throw in down at Millwall, and I was getting things thrown. I was like, mate, what's going on here? Just relax. Everyone needs to chill out a bit. But everyone was that far bloody, loose cannons. And maybe we just weren't up for it. Maybe that's why we ended up in this relegation dogfight. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
I think
go on, Tom.
You see so many sort of older pros drop down the leagues or go to Scotland, don't you, play for Rangers or Celtic, and they struggle. And that's probably why. They probably think, go there, have a nice, easy retirement here, pick up a few more paychecks, and it, like you say, it's not that. You put a target on your back as well, don't you? Chris Waddle going and playing at Chesterfield.
I know.
Chesterfield players aren't going to hold back. They're not going to think, let's let him do his thing.
It's their scalp, isn't it? Let's be honest. Burnley, we had 5,000 travelling fans. We were the best travelling fans outside the Premiership. Fact. In terms of the fans that we took. So then, we're taking that. You got the gaffer, a couple other boys that had played at a good level. If I'm in the opposition, I'm lifting my game 20, 30%, no doubt about it. Yeah. So we were probably up against it, albeit on a piece of paper. We probably should have been tipped for promotion. I totally agree with that.
So I suppose the next thing to ask, Stan comes in. I don't know if you've got this in your schedule anyway, Nick, but I thought I'd take a lead as the Burnley man. But, what's that like, the difference in character? Because for me, as an outsider, placid, nice guy to talk to, Chris Waddle, absolute, I don't know what the word you'd use. Not someone you'd fuck about with, is what I'd say with Stan Ternent. What was that like walking into the dressing room for him? I imagine it was a big difference for the players, was it?
Strange, man. Strange. Like, seriously, like, so you talk about this this placid man in Chris Waddle and likes to play football and stuff like that. Stan comes in, from the area. He's been around the traps. He's like a well-travelled professional player, coach, gets it all right, duck, dive. He's got all the tricks up his sleeve, right? And he hit us with like just a bombshell of just like aggression / shit, we've got to be on our toes here. And it was an easy one for him because we almost got relegated. He'd be like, fuck, he's almost got relegated last year. No wonder he's fucking almost got relegated. Like, that's crap. And, so sort of come in with a whole stick one, and we were rattled, we were like, shit. You've got to start thinking twice about whether you're going to be late, what car you're going to drive into the changing room, into the training ground with. And, mate, if I told you some of the stuff that he would nitpick at, it was like, far out, mate. Like, football was probably 10th thing on my list in the morning to think of. The rest of it was Stan Ternent. It was like, what's he going to say to me today? What's he going to do, mate? Like, I sort of like check my hair, make sure I got all my food off my face and nothing on my shirt because he fucking get your shirt tucked in or and I was like, far out, man. Like, it's almost like Sergeant Major had walked in and just like like a hurricane. And we were like, far out, man. This guy's psycho. And then he put on like these mad like training sessions and pre-season. He'd bring down the balls and he'd get the balls and he'd go, right, pass those bag of balls over and someone would get them. And Glenn Little, right? Funny guy. And he's getting balls out and start, what are you doing with them? Put those things away. You don't need them today. And so he'd bring down footballs for pre-season and just let us look at them and then run. And it's like, so then you finish your running and you think the balls are going to come out. The balls didn't come out. So he's almost like goading you as if to say, right, we might play football today or we might just run. So it was just a case of this guy, man, he's just he's playing with our minds. Do you know what I mean? So we had some real crazy stuff, man, like pre-season and that, like running up through Burnley and it's just, mate, some bizarre stuff, really. So to answer your question, he rattled us, mate. He proper rattled us. He come in and then he got rid of a bunch of lads. I don't know if you've read his book or whatever, but
the four that he sacked on Radio Lancashire, well, technically sacked. There were four. Off the top of my head: Steve Blatherwick, Mark Winstanley. I think Fordy was one of them actually. Michael Williams, Mark Ford, was that it? Yeah. And basically, they'd had a poor game or whatever, and he just went on Radio Lancashire after the game and went, nothing against the lads, but they're not good enough. They'll never play for us again. So in the morning, what was that like in the dressing room? I mean, that must be mental to hear that. Yeah.
So if you look at it, right, the way it was, Mark Winstanley was one of them. Did you say Beef? Yeah, Winstanley, Howie, Blathers, Michael Williams was another one. 40 lasted a bit longer. 40 was on like decent dough. I don't think he could get rid of him. But we went away pre-season to Exeter, and we've had like a night out and stuff like that. And so, long story short, there's a bit of shenanigans going on, and the gaffer pulls in like some of these guys and starts giving them the riot act about being out too long, etc. So then when we sort of got back, he'd already had a bee in his bonnet with a bunch of lads. And then, as you said, poor game. And then he sort of just smashed them and went, never playing for this football club again. So I think a lot of it wasn't that they weren't good enough. Let's get that right. Because you look at those names that we've just mentioned, they're like seasoned pros that have played at a very good level. So for him to say that they weren't good enough to play for him or for Burnley, I'm not buying that. So there was a few underlying sort of issues, let's call it, prior to the sacking. But then those boys had to come in. So they weren't allowed to train with us. They'd be training on the side on their own. And, if you talk about players getting put in a situation where you still obviously have to pick up your money because you've got a family to feed and stuff like that, but then you're not allowed to train with the rest of the lads. And so where do you end up? Do you end up training with the reserves? And then your head's gone because you think, I'm training with the reserves. I'm 28, 29 years old or whatever that may be. It's a real dangerous area to go into, and if you don't manage it properly as a coach or a club, it can become really toxic. And let's just say it wasn't managed very well, and it did become quite toxic.
I can get that.
Yeah. So one more thing before we go on to the a little quiz, if that's all right. And
yeah.
Apologies if I say this wrong, but so from Burnley you went to Wollongong Wolves, playing in the NSL Grand Final against Perth. So being 3-0 down at half-time to then drawing 3-3 and winning on penalties. What was that feeling like, and how high did that rank on your achievements?
I kind of felt like I shouldn't have been there in the first place. Me and Stan had a fallout, if the truth be known. And then I just went and said to him, I says, mate, I'm going to have to go on loan because the Olympic Games was coming up, 2000 in Sydney, and I was in the squad, obviously. So I was trying to get as much game time as I could. And so we didn't probably see eye to eye in the sense of me representing my national team, because respectfully back then it was like Australia. Like, who plays for Australia sort of thing. It was like, unless you were playing for England or someone decent, then it was like, are you serious? What, you're going to go play for Australia? So I could sit here for days and tell you about the fallouts we had through all of this. But I just eventually went up to him. I said, mate, I've got to get out of here. I've got to go play football. And it just so happened the easiest option for me would have been to go back to Australia, be under the spotlight, get some games, etc. So I went back to play for Wollongong, as you said, and I think it was like a 2-month loan spell or something. So it was like 2 months towards the end of the season. I went back and enjoyed the sunshine and played in this grand final. So there was like 45,000 people packed into this AFL ground. So it's like Subiaco Oval in Perth, and Perth's 5 hours away from Sydney. So as it stands, we had hardly any fans. I think we had like 200 fans, and they had the rest of the, whatever the maths works out to be, of the stadium capacity. So we were up against it, 3-0 down. I was on the bench in that game, so I'd gone back to play, and again, things didn't quite work for me in terms of my body and stuff like that. So I'm sitting on the bench just thinking, this is a disaster. So I sort of like said to the gaffer at the time, I said, get me on there, mate. This is terrible. Like, we're 3-0 down. And so we went in at half time, and sure enough, he just sort of run the riot act. He's like, this is terrible. And Robbo, get your gear on, get stripped down. And this other guy, Surus, he goes, Sura, get your gear on, the two of you. Right, you're coming off, Robbo on, this guy on. And I was like, yeah, well, about time, mate, So gets out there, comes out like a man on a mission. I've been in England for 2 years playing professional football. I've played in front of big crowds. This was nothing to me, So I went out and blasted it for 45 minutes. I thought I played really well. We got ourselves back to 3-3, as you said, and went into extra time. None of us could really sort of break the deadlock, and so it went to penalties. So it was a real sort of like clincher. But so back then it was the most watched sporting event in Australian history in terms of like televised event. So if you think of the Liverpool versus AC Milan Champions League final, no different to that. Down 3, gets it back to 3-3. Everyone's kind of like almost turning the box off at halftime, switching the Barbies off, but then we sort of started bouncing back, and I goes, oh, they got a chance here. They had a real spring in our step, and banged 1, banged 2, banged 3, and then it goes into the penalties. And mate, I reckon if the scoreline ended up like 14-13, if I'm right in saying, mate, no one missed a penalty, eh? It was just like one after the other, and everyone's like sweating it out. And then eventually we went on to win it, and just mad celebrations. We caught the red eye special, so it's basically a 5-hour trip. So you get on the plane at midnight, you fly back to the eastern side of Australia. It's 5 hours. You get there at 6 a.m. So we're just proper on the gear straight away. After the game at the hotel, then to the airport. We're sort of like just running around with this trophy in the airport. Gets back to Wollongong. We get a bus, which then takes us an hour's drive to get to the stadium. There was like a ticker tape parade going on. It was massive for Australia, mate, but quite surreal, because I kind of knew that was my last kick of the ball for them. It was kind of like I'd only really come back as a stopgap. And then the club were like, oh, can you stay? Would you stay? And I was like, nah. I said, look, I've got unfinished business back in England. And then that's when kind of like I had the conversation with Stan and just sort of said, look, if I'm not in your plans, then that's sweet. I'll just move somewhere else. And then long story short, Swindon bought me from Burnley. So Colin Todd signed me from Burnley, and Colin and Stan at the time had that conversation as to, was I the player that Swindon needed, etc. So I packed my bags and I moved there. But it was disappointing because I had a lot of good mates, Cookie and Weller and Glenn and all the boys. We were all quite close, to be fair.
Yeah.
So moving to a new club's like your mum and dad ripping you out of school and taking you to a new school. It's like, shit, I don't know anyone here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you soon get to know people, and yeah, lots of great memories of Swindon as well as the other clubs I played for.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning as well that you did get capped, obviously, by Australia at full level. What was that like? What's the feeling with that? I mean, I think
terrific.
You're the first international we've had on full.
Second, Warren Barton, weren't it?
Warren Barton, yeah, of course. But yeah, what's the feeling? How does that come about? And
yeah, it was good. Like I said to you, so when Chris Waddle signed me, I was playing for the under-20s in a World Cup for Australia. So I was always sort of like pegged on as being that guy that was going to go through the ranks anyway. So playing in the World Cup for Australia in the 20s, I was in the Olympic Games squad right up until the Olympic Games. So then really all that's left after that is your national team. So I think everyone was looking for just like a level of consistency within my game before I got the call up. If the truth be known, I had a lot of injuries. I had 10 operations through my career. Missed out on many. If you go on and have a look at my sort of games versus the years I played, very minimal amounts of games. And that's not because I was sitting in the grandstand because I wasn't good enough. It was basically injured. If Robbo's injured, then you can't call upon him, then that's it. He's out of the squad, And so we're talking like big injuries. I've had like 3 ACL reconstructions. They're not pretty. Best part of 11 months the first one, 14 months the second one, 18 months the third one. So if you talk about taking percentages out of someone's career, then I must have lost, I don't know how many games. Yeah. So to get the one cap for my country, I still feel like I should have had a hell of a lot more. But I suppose one cap's one cap. You sort of have it, and it's sort of like your pride. It's not hanging around in my house, if that makes sense. I don't have my strip up with the cap. But yeah, it's nice to have. When people sort of say you played for your national team, it was against the 2002 World Cup Japanese team.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was in Japan. So you can imagine I flew from Edinburgh to Heathrow to Japan, and then an internal flight to Hiroshima, I think it was. So it was like a 3-day camel trek to get there. Your eyes are popping out of your head. And then you sort of like have 1 day training, and then you're into a game against probably one of the sharpest national teams that I've ever played against. So you're almost like chasing shadows. You hardly got a touch of the ball. And it was hard, mate. It was really hard. But, it will always be in my memory standing for the national anthem. I've done that many times. You do it at primary school. You do it every day. You sing your national anthem in Australia. You play sport. You sing your national anthem. But to stand there and know that my family were back in Australia watching with a great amount of pride, and obviously my dad played for Australia as well, then, it was great. Really top occasion, and something that I'll never forget, put it that way.
Might be wrong, but was that the same team that, is it Nakamura played for?
Yeah. All of those guys, mate. They're really good side. Technically very good, sharp. You think to yourself, human versus human. I'll get close and I'll make a tackle and I'll intimidate him. And no, none of that. Mate. It was just like trying to get close to these guys, and there was 70,000 obviously of their fans there, so the place was absolutely buzzing. You couldn't hear yourself think, and it was a real difficult occasion, but there's something that I hold close to my heart.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, I'll let you go through the quiz.
Yes. Okay. So we do this with all our guests. It's the Tommy Lee Pro 5 quiz. Tommy Lee, ex-Chesterfield goalkeeper, was the first to get 5 out of 5, so he earned the naming rights. So yeah,
has anyone got 0?
No, I'm afraid not.
Had a 1.
I'm shitting myself.
I think it's all right.
Far out.
And it's all about your career, so.
That's all right.
Yeah, should be fine. So number 1, I'll prefix this with according to Wikipedia, because I think it was Warren Barton who pulled me up on on my research. So according to Wikipedia, you made 174 league appearances in your career. Which team did you make the most league appearances for?
I'm going to say Burnley.
It is Burnley, correct. 36 for Burnley, 32 for Stockport, 25 for Dundee.
I made loads until Stan come.
There's a few who can say that, though, isn't there, sadly?
Oh, man. Wow.
Number 2, in the aforementioned 2000 grand final, you scored your penalty in the shootout. I watched it earlier, actually, on YouTube. It were a mad atmosphere. So many people there. So yeah, which number penalty did you take?
Well, I wanted to be number 1, right? Let's be honest here. I says I'm going number 1, gaffer. So Stuart Young, that used to play for Hull and Arsenal, he was at Arsenal with Kevin Campbell, actually. He'd moved to Australia. So me and him were like, no. It was almost like scissor, paper, rock to see who went first. So he ended up winning. So he went first, I went second.
Yeah, it was second. My follow-up question was going to be, were you one of the first to put your hands up? So,
1,000%, mate. Yeah.
Good penalty as well. Keeper's bottom right.
Thanks, mate.
So, number 3, you scored 1 goal for Burnley. Who was it against?
So that would have been, I've got a picture of that. So I've got Ali Pickering on one shoulder, Andy Payton jumping on the other shoulder. So that would have been Boxing Day away against York City.
Correct. 3-3.
Nice.
I was there somewhere in the crowd going mental with my dad as well.
Yeah. It was just slot it to me and I'll pop that away, lads. Yeah.
You might be on that picture, Luke.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Mark's got me hung on his wall.
Yeah.
Might still be on Mark's toe. On
Yeah.
I wondered why my toenail was blue a week later.
Right, number 4, you're doing very well so far. So while at Stockport County, which of these former Premier League players did you make the most appearances alongside? So there were some real future stars in that Stockport team. So you played with one of these the most time. So it's Ricky Lambert, Adam Lafondra, or Ashley Williams.
So. Yeah, right. So Alfie was just young coming through, so it's not Alfie. Lambo was a legend and scored so many goals, so he probably scored the most goals out of all of that. But I'm going to say that Ashley Williams was very rarely injured. I'm going to say Ashley Williams.
It was Ricky Lambert.
Oh, Lambo. Far out.
It was Ricky Lambert.
I'm still mates with Ash, so I had to say Ash.
Ricky was 25. Like you say, Alfie was, he only made 8 alongside him, and Ashley Williams 22. So it wasn't far if it was a tricky one, though.
Yeah, well, Lambo was never going to get dropped, mate. I thought he might have had a few injuries along the way, but yeah, top player, mate.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you see those players going right to the top?
Yeah. I stayed in touch with all of them, mate. So we had some good guys there. As you said, Ashley went on and had a terrific career. I'm still really good mates with Ash now. Lambo done well. Alfie done well. There was probably a few others that went on to have like really good careers. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it was again one of those nearly teams. The teams that potentially should have got promoted, but we didn't in the end. So it's disappointing.
Yeah. And question 5, as always on the Tommy Lee Profile Quiz, you played under multiple managers in your career. Can you name 5 of them?
Okay, so we'll start off with Chris Waddle.
1.
Then move on to Colin Todd.
2.
We'll go for Ivano Benetti.
3.
We will go for... Can it be any of my sort of managers?
Yeah.
Any that Josh has got listed.
Any that I've got listed.
Yeah.
Well, my national team manager was Frank Farina.
Yeah. 4.
And who else would I like to give a little shout out to? Who else? Who did I have up in Scotland? We'll go for Stan Ternent. Make it nice and easy. I wasn't going to give him a mention, but yeah, there you go. You can have that for the quiz.
Yeah, perfect, brilliant.
So, last thing, Mark, if it's all right, before you go, we have a little thing at the end. It's the score predictions, and that's each of our teams. So, Luke Burnley, Josh Man United, and me Derby. So, the next fixtures, if you can predict the scoreline. So, the next one is Rotherham versus Derby. What do you think the score prediction will be in that game?
Derby banker. And I'm going to put it down as it's time they started to turn a corner. So I'm going to put it down as a nice, convincing 3-1.
That'd be nice, I'd say that.
Where's it at?
It's at Rotherham, at the New York Stadium.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still... Well, can I peg it back to 2-1? Is that all right?
Yeah, 2-1.
Been away from home.
Playing against Rotherham, now it's 1-0.
If you just want to, we'll cut this bit out, but just explain, because for when it's on YouTube, when we put it out, so these predictions are a bit further forward. But
yeah, terrific. All right, cool.
So the next game that we have is Man United versus Leeds on the Sunday.
Where at, Man U?
At Old Trafford, yeah.
All right, I'll put that one down as another close one. I'll stick that down as a 2-1 as well to Manchester United, with Greenwood on the scoreline and Cavani coming on and getting the winner. And for Leeds, just the one goal. Yeah, 2-1.
Take that.
If you get the scorers as well, I'm giving you full 10 points.
Can I just tell you something? This is no bullshit. I don't even know how to put a coupon on. Like when I first come across, like Glenn Little's walking about with those little pens, just gambling away. And I'm like, mate, what are you doing? Oh, just doing the coupons. And so you had the big sheet for that. And then the little one for his little horse racing and all that. And I still never, ever learned how to gamble in this country. And now I'm back here living. I still don't know how to do it, but you go to the casino and almost lose my house. But I just don't know how to. I
wish I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah,
seriously, man. And it's funny. I was listening to Matthew McConaughey today on his ebook, and he was saying that he punts on the NFL, like the gridiron. And so he's talking about odds and this and that. And it just brought me back to my days of football, because outside of football, I don't hear anyone talking about gambling as much as what the players did. So, it's funny that people were gambling on sport. I've never, ever done it. So maybe I'll start if I get these right.
In your honour, Mark, I'll put a tenner on United and Greenwood and Cavani to score. We'll split it if I win.
Good man.
And then the last one, which is on a Monday night, is Burnley versus Wolves.
At Burnley. Yeah, that's... mate, my heart's telling me to go with a Burnley win. But as tough as it can be, I'm going to have to go for the draw there, and I'm going to put it down as a 1-1 draw.
Really?
Okay.
Would you take that,
Wolves are a good side, man. Like, yeah, you take that all day against them. You just hope that a few of the boys sort of like they do defend well, and I love watching Daishi on the sidelines. And I played with Woney at Swindon, and I was very good mates with Craig Mawson, still am, although he's moved to Manchester United as the goalkeeper coach. I still sort of like speak to the guys and always want them to do well. Terry Pashley's still at Burnley. I've still got mates who live in Burnley, so I'm always rooting for them for sure. But against Wolves there, it's always going to be a difficult task. And 1-1 sounds about right to me.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Second it, Luke. 1-1.
Yeah, I'll take it. Never turn down the draw.
That's it, mate.
No.
That's it.
But thank you very much, Mark. You've been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I said to my missus, I'm doing this podcast. She goes, mate. She goes, all you doing is podcasts these days. And she goes, you're more important now than what you were when you were playing. You're more popular, at least. And I'm like, yeah. So, it's good, guys. Look, for those that know me well enough, I enjoy speaking about football, and if it's about my time or someone else's time or whatever, it's just it's good that I live in a country where I can do that, because in Australia we don't tend to have the passion for the game as much as what it's like over here. So whether I'm at the shops or speaking to you guys, it's always very passionate. And you guys, the job that you guys do is you just exuberate passion. So well done to that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And best of luck to you lad at City.
We'll
keep an eye on.
Yeah, cool guys. Well, we'll keep in touch, and I look forward to it coming out, and we'll smash it out there and let people have a listen.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks so much, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Take care. All the best.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Welcome back. How sound was Mark? But let's get into our last weekend's predictions, because I've had a flatline stinker. But Luke, looking pretty healthy. So we'll start with Derby and Stoke. 1-1, Luke. It was 0-0.
Yeah, good result. I thought you'd get a draw. Well done.
Cheers.
Go team.
Josh, you predicted 1-0 Derby.
Did I?
Yeah, you said 1-0 Derby, and I'll quote, Wayne Rooney will get perm job.
I still think he'll get perm job because she beat Swansea midweek. I thought I'd predicted a draw. I went for a draw in the Super 6 thing. Yeah. Not a bad result, though. Decent.
Yeah, I had 2-0 Derby. We're on the up. Wayne Rooney's actually got us playing very good football. Nicely attacking, taking game to teams, and defensively very sound. So I'm happy. And that 2-0 against Swansea again. Wobbler. Right, Man U versus Man City. Josh, you had 4-3.
Yeah, just the 7 goals out. I'll start predicting 0-0s for United in big games.
Yeah. And then when you play against other teams, they're going to score, and then you predict like 2 or 3 goals or something.
Yeah.
But
it's not very good, am I?
Luke, you were bang on. 0-0, 5 points.
Yeah, just knew it'd be a crap game. Always are, aren't they?
Normally City are quite good, though. It's rare that City play for 0-0 as well.
You're the destroyers of exciting football. You're like the Burnley of the top 6.
Big top 2 for winners game in hand.
Yeah.
You may as well not be, though.
I'm not sure that's how it works.
I don't want to get into it. You're the worst team in the top 6.
That's an insult and a half, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean it. I know what you mean. We're so inconsistent. Yeah. Not many teams in the top 6 will concede 6 at home to Tottenham.
Worst team in top 6. Right. I had 2 on Man City. I did think they'd win, but I think probably should have won as well. It was a bit shit, weren't it?
I don't think they deserve to win. I don't think United deserve to win. 0-0 were perfect. It's what everyone wanted.
It's Frank Lampard's fault, isn't it?
Yeah.
Moving on, personal joke. Right. Arsenal-Burnley. Luke, you said, I absolutely hate Arsenal. We're going to beat them. 1-1.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd win. But we did. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Because I don't like Arsenal.
Why don't you?
Come at us, AFTV.
Yeah. Okay, no. Right, Josh, we'll move on. Luke, Josh, 2-1, you had Arsenal.
Yeah, I thought they'd beat Burnley at home. No offence to Burnley. But Arsenal should be
Burnley
better than they are.
Burnley at Man United at mid-table.
The worst team in bottom 6. Arsenal are just diabolical, though. Absolutely diabolical. They've got a fraud for a manager who used to put cones out for Pep. He's got no clue. I hope they stick with him forever because there's a very real chance they could get relegated if they do. And that would be amazing.
Can't wait for away day Championship at Emirates.
Yeah.
And I had 2-0 Arsenal again. I thought they were going to be quite comfortably winning, but as Luke said, they're shit. So
Yeah.
my opinion's changed. I don't think they're going to do much more.
No.
Until
Let's hope they go down.
yeah, they need a very big January. Very big January. They need to bring in a lot of decent players. So, right, we'll get on to this weekend's predictions, and we've got Rotherham versus Derby. Luke, what do you think that score will be?
What's that? Sorry?
Rotherham. Shall I start that whole thing again? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. Go for just start from this week's predictions. I'll move Elf again.
keep it there. Right, you ready, Luke?
Yeah.
So, this weekend's predictions, Rotherham versus Derby. What do you think that result will be?
1-1.
Josh?
2-0 Derby.
I'm going to join you. I'm going to say 2-0 Derby. I think we'll
They're
get
on the
another
up.
2-0 there. But Rotherham, they're doing well.
Yeah.
Doing very well.
Yeah.
So, next fixture, we have Man United versus Leeds, and they are on the back of a 5-2 win against Newcastle, Josh.
Yeah, and they'll come out attacking. It's
It's a Patrick Bamford threat they've got.
Yeah, but they're so hit and miss. They'll batter teams like Newcastle, and then they'll lose to teams like West Ham. United should beat them, but there'll be goals in it. I'll say 0-0.
Oh, there'll be goals in it. 0-0. Luke, Leeds versus Man United.
2-2.
2-2. And I'm going to go for a 2-1 Man United win. And then the last fixture we've got is Burnley versus Wolves. Luke.
1-0 Burnley.
Do you not like Wolves either?
I've got no issue with them. I just think 1-0.
They're not great, are they, this season?
They've lost the best striker, haven't they? And he were decent.
Yeah.
So, get well soon, Rui. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Burnley will win. I'm going to go... I don't score many goals, though, do they? 1-0 Wolves.
1-0. Did you just say Burnley will win 1-0 Wolves?
I think it, and then I go against my prediction because I'm so bad at it. So I'm going for things I don't think will happen.
Yeah, I think 1-0 Burnley. I think they'll beat Wolves. I have no reason why they'll beat Wolves, but I think they'll beat Wolves. Terrible predictions coming up. But no, so total now we have, Luke, moved to 34. Me and Josh got 0 points for last weekend, so I stay at 50, Josh stays at 17. So yeah, you need to get all of your points that we've been doing over the last 2 months to get near Luke.
Yeah.
You're not doing bad.
Yeah, I'm doing really bad.
But no, so we've been Pint. Make sure you stay tuned for next week where it's the Christmas special and we'll be revealing who is the winner of this glorious Pint t-shirt.
Indeed.
Obviously not this one, but another one. Also, all sizes, different colours, and we'll get in touch with you. So stay tuned for next week. Bye.
Bye.
Pie and a pint. Pie and